15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 10, 9. Ignition sequence start.
Space Nuts.
5, 4, 3, 2.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Space Nuts.
Astronauts report it feels good.
Hello, I'm Andrew Dunkley and I'm a space nut, and with me is Dr. Fred Watson from the Australian Astronomical Observatory. G'day, Fred.
G'day, Andrew, and I'm a space nut too.
Yes, you've got to be nuts to do this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And we have been talking together for more than a decade on radio, and now we're sort of making that trip into the new world, if you like, in the form of a podcast.
We move with the times in the space world here, Andrew, and nobody can accuse us of being backward in our broadcasting. So podcasting is, the way of the future, and I'm very happy to be having these chats with you down the track.
Now, I have 32 years radio experience, 22 of those in the public broadcast sector and 10 years in commercial radio, and have been working in journalism all that time on radio and in newspapers and online. So I've got a bit of a history in the journalism side of things. Your career history is a little bit different to mine.
It is, although we've clearly coincided towards the latter part of our respective careers. So, my interest in astronomy actually goes back to my school days in the 1950s and 60s, and I got basically straight into work involved in optical instruments and spacecraft. In fact, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon, I was actually working on a spacecraft in Newcastle on Tyne in England, believe it or not, helping to build a camera for it, which never really worked properly, but it did fly in the end. I then became an astronomer in the Royal Observatories, the Royal Greenwich Observatory in the UK, and a bit later the Royal Observatory in Edinburgh, Scotland's Royal Observatory. My PhD and MSc and BSc are all from Scottish University, so I got a strong connection with Scotland. But came to Australia to live in the early 1980s and actually spent time at Coonabarabran until I went back to the UK, briefly came back again in mid-1990s with my job of astronomer in charge, which I was in for the best part of 20 years. I'm still an employee of the Australian Astronomical Observatory, but now I'm not in charge of anybody because they've all retired. So I'm now, actually, I do have a title. It's Head of Lighting and Environment, because I look after the dark skies issue at the observatory. But for the last 15, actually longer, 17, 18 years, I've been doing radio interviews with various presenters on ABC Radio, including yourself. And these days I do round about 220 radio slots a year, and about a tenth of that, maybe 20 or 30 TV slots a year, which are all based on news items in astronomy and space science. And it basically keeps me off the street, Andrew. That's the whole point of it.
That's most important, yes. In fact, some of the places we'll be talking about going forward are certainly not in the streets. They're on other planets, in other galaxies.
Far away.
Occasionally we will delve into other dimensions, which is an area of astronomy that's of great interest. So there's a lot to talk about, and we'll be doing that from now on every week, just seeing what's happening in the astronomical world, discoveries, major achievements, and some of the failures that continue to dog those that are working in what is a really fascinating but sometimes not very helpful world.
Very high-tech stuff, that's right. When you're in space science, and actually in astronomy too, you're nearly always doing things for the first time. So when we build instruments for our telescopes, for example, it's often something that nobody has ever done before. And you work as carefully as you can, but there are sometimes disasters. The disasters, of course, are much more spectacular in the space world. We seldom have things exploding, although a colleague of mine once nearly lost his eyesight with something that exploded in the lab. So you've got to watch out for these things.
Yes, well, he shouldn't be putting metal in the microwave. Really.
Right.
So we're called the Space Nuts. The segment's the Space Nuts. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and we look forward to your company every week. So, Fred, we'll be fairly busy by the sound.
I think we will be, and Space Nuts rule, really, don't they? So let's go for it.
Space Nuts. You've been listening to the Space Nuts podcast.
Mission complete, Houston.
Subscribe to the full podcast on iTunes, Audio Boom, and Stitcher, or your favourite podcast distributor.
This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.